Another edition of the Cybersecurity Agony Uncles. This week, we have Eliza-May Austin, the CEO, on board. And as ever, I'm Rich Benfield. Welcome, Eliza.
Hi. Yeah, Stephen's gone on holiday, so he's catching up with some stuff, so I'm taking over. So hopefully it's not too unprofessional. I'm going to try my hardest not to swear. Stephen's already told me off. He's preemptively told me off for swearing.
Excellent. So let's jump straight in and let's have this week's Agony Uncles question. So, dear Agony Uncles, I hope you can help me navigate a challenging situation at work. I've been in the IT field for 8 years, and 2 years ago, I transitioned into a cybersecurity consultant role at one of the big four consultancy firms. Whilst I acknowledge that I'm not the most experienced, I've been continuously improving and hold a CISSP certification. So, here's the dilemma. I was given a small team of direct reports, all with the same job title but in a lower pay band than me, or so I thought. During the interview process for a new team member, we agreed on a woman with 1 year of industry experience in compliance who came through from a training boot camp. Surprisingly, she's being paid the same as me, despite being my direct report, and she's earning 15k more than her male colleagues with more experience than her. I don't want to jump to conclusions and assume this pay gap is solely because of her gender, but it's hard to ignore the possibility. We have ambitious quotas to meet, and this situation is causing me a lot of frustration. On one hand, I understand that she may need time to gain experience, but her pay grade implies a certain level of expertise. I can't help but feel a tinge of jealousy because I worked hard to reach my salary, while it seems she was handed hers. I want to support the women in cyber movement, but incidents like this make it challenging. I've considered sharing my thoughts on LinkedIn, but I'm worried it might harm my career. I'm so angry, and I'm starting to dislike her even though it's not her fault. What should I do to handle this situation without driving myself mad with jealousy? And how do I stop myself disliking her so much? I've genuinely considered leaving because it feels so unfair. Sincerely, struggling cybersecurity consultant. Wow,
I honestly don't know where to start with this one.
there's a
And
lot to unpack.
yes, and I feel like we could quite easily cancel ourselves with this one. Well, me especially.
Oh,
Do you know? I think I know who this is. I'm not
really?
going to say him, but I think I know who this is because someone had a bit of a rant about this to me at a conference recently in London. So I think I know who it is, but obviously it's besides the point. So, what are your initial thoughts?
This sounds like an HR issue to me. I can understand feeling a little bit put out that somebody's earning more than everybody else for the same job. But actually, everybody brings slightly different skills and experience to something. It might well be that this person has been identified as having a specific skill set or a specific kind of experience that was really needed. Or they might have even been taken on into the business when there was a skill shortage. So, it's one of those cases where your mileage may vary.
Yeah.
And, I've been in jobs where, even as the head of department, I've had people beneath me earning more than me because that's the nature of their job. So, one instance that springs to mind is I hired an amazing developer who did brilliant work, and they were earning about 10 grand more than I was at the time, but I couldn't begrudge them it because their career path is different to mine.
Yeah, and the business needed that at that time. Yeah, no, I get it. And I wish that Stephen wasn't off on this one because he would have he would have agreed with you and you would have had a real relation. But I'm a bit conflicted on this. I disagree with this one. So I think that there is an issue in cybersecurity in the UK. I don't know about other other countries, but there is definitely an issue in the UK of, I don't know how to say this without sounding like a complete cow. So when I used to run LHS, Ladies Hacking Society, for anyone that doesn't know, because it garnered me quite a high profile, I used to get companies calling me, like CISOs and heads of recruitment from various different vendors and companies, whatever, calling me or messaging me on LinkedIn and saying, we would really like to hire a woman for this role. Do you have anyone that you know? I could have quite easily set up a recruitment company, but I'm not a masochist, so I didn't. And I remember having numerous conversations where I would say, well, why do you want a woman? That's great. Yeah, I could probably introduce you to some people, but why do you want a woman for that role? Well, we've not got quotas, but we've got quotas. Wink, wink, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
To the point where they would have rather have cherry picked someone out of LHS with no experience than hire the multiple male candidates that they had.
Yeah.
So this is something that is happening, and it is based on gender. And I probably can't prove that, but I do know from women in my own life that I've come across, and I don't begrudge them in. I do like them, and whatever, they'll go to women's events, and there'll be some high-profile woman in cyber get on stage and say, "You should be demanding this because we need more women in cyber. You will get a job because we need more women in cyber. You don't take less than this amount of money." They've got no technical skills whatsoever. So like this guy, I think the frustration for this guy is that he's got history in IT of 8 years, which is a long time.
Yeah.
He's got 2 years in cyber and he's qualified with a CISP. We've got, some people don't like CISP, but I think it holds a lot of weight. So it's saying, like, it's this qualification and his history is saying that he is at a particular bar. The fact that they've given him this position where he's a leader of a team in a consultancy firm, again, sets a picture of him. And I think that's why you started off with that. This woman has come out of a boot camp, and collectively with that boot camp has got a year's worth of experience, and he's earning more than a male colleagues. Now, we don't know if there's other female colleagues on that team. We don't know. And we don't know what this guy's earning or whatever. But if he's in the big four, maybe it is a gender thing. I don't know. How do I tackle this? Like, I'm trying to close the door behind me for the women, which I'm certainly not.
No, absolutely. I mean, this is a diversity and inclusion nightmare, essentially. Yeah. I am absolutely all for diversity in the workplace.
Of course. Yeah.
Absolutely. 100% behind it. But equally, you have to have bandings and levels in job roles that people slot into. 15K above what the male colleagues are earning is a lot. And as you say, this person came straight out of boot camp, so is probably lacking in a significant amount of experience to sort of justify that outside of simply being a woman. And there has to be a balance. I mean, yes, you can have incentives, but it doesn't necessarily have to be salary. There could be small sign-on bonuses, guaranteed extra training for somebody in that sort of position, fresh out of boot camp, things like that. It doesn't all have to come down to salary.
If you think of the big four, so this guy is working at one of the big four, they wouldn't have been short of applicants.
No.
So they would have potentially have had their pick, but they've decided to go with this person, and they've decided to put them in a pay band above their station, basically. So although there's incentives that you can use, and I agree, in order to entice applicants or keep people, fair enough. If you are one of the big four, you don't have to do that.
No.
So that's a worry. But I want to go back to like what I was saying with companies ringing me and saying, we want a female for this position, and they, to the point, they don't care about the amount of experience. And it's kind of annoying because it benefited us at the time, because these companies were sponsoring Ladies Hacking Society to get access to women for that particular. Oh God, I have to be careful what I'm saying, because I'm so easily just like, I want to go like this, and just ran. Just start climbing the walls. But I remember a woman that was at Ladies Hacking Society, no experience, got a role as a junior SOC analyst, which is a fantastic job starting.
Yeah.
And I can remember talking to her about this other job that had come up somewhere else, and I was like, well, they've asked me if I know anyone, so do you want me to make an introduction? She was like, do you know how much it is? And I said, yeah, they've said it's this much. And she was like, and it was a lot. I won't get out of bed for that. I was like, what? You're a junior analyst? She was like, yeah, I get paid way more than that. And then proceeded to go on, which got my nose up, and then proceeded to go on to rant to me about how she didn't feel like she was being helped enough for the junior level training in the company she was in. And my argument to that was, if you are in a pay band, if you are in a pay bracket that suggests you know what you're doing, you should know what you're doing. Now, it's the company's fault for hiring him into that position. But I feel like I'm bitting and bobbing around here, but yeah. This Jason Cordingley has just left a message that says, what else have they done? Maybe she had worked in the military for over a decade, used the boot camp to reskill after she had left. Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think military experience necessarily qualifies you to do something unrelated, unless they're like a communications person or whatever. But yeah, there could have been transferable skills there that they put a high value on, of course. I think I'll shut up because I think I'm going to cancel myself if I say what I really think.
So one of the points that today's questioner raises is that this particular person came in through a compliance path. I wonder if maybe that was seen as potentially slightly more valuable as well within the consultancy business, because the person who raised the question is a CISSP, which is great. It's a technical certification as much as anything else, and is obviously seen as one of the de facto standards within the industry. But other skills are needed to have a well-rounded security team, and somebody from compliance might well be adding value in another way.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, isn't it, without understanding the dynamics of the team, what was missing, what is needed. Yeah, absolutely. So if they're a consultancy, especially one of the big four, they'll specialize in placing people into different companies and charging a fortune for it. I think what concerns me as well is that we all know it happens with the big four. They will place people with very limited experience into organizations, and that organization goes, oh, it's fine, we've got EY, Deloitte, KPMG sign off, so we're fine, regardless of the fact the person they've just got has got 2 years experience telling them how to run ISO 27001. So that kind of thing annoys me, but I'm conscious I don't want to turn this into an Eliza rant.
Fair enough. One of the other things that they mention, that the questioner mentions, is that they transitioned into cybersecurity 2 years ago. So yes, they've got the CISSP, but 2 years experience still isn't a huge amount. There's people that have been knocking around the industry for 20 plus years. And without wishing to sound rude, the deal that somebody negotiates upon entry into their job has got nothing to do with the deal that somebody else negotiates when they join the company.
Absolutely. And I think that when something that really is paramount to success is your ability to negotiate, unless you're in a role that doesn't require it. Now, when people say, quite commonly, men get paid more than women, I generally don't think they do. It's illegal to do that in this country.
Yeah.
Unless someone negotiates their pay based on their specifics of their role. And it's common knowledge that women aren't particularly great at that. So if this lady has done that, that's awesome. That's a really good positive. So how does he get over it? I don't know. Because he's asking, like, how do I stop disliking her?
Well, I think, frankly, the person has to get over it
Yeah.
for the sake of their own sanity, but also to stop any discord within the team. You know, if this person is at the same level, then yeah, they might want to have a conversation with their line manager. If this person who's asking the question is the line manager, then how did he approve a direct report, a direct hire that sits beneath him? I'm assuming it's a him. Sorry, shouldn't make that assumption. How did he approve this person earning 15k more in the first place?
I mean, good question. We don't know. I guess at larger companies, sometimes don't they negotiate that stuff at a different level? I have no idea. I don't know. I never worked at one of the big four.
Quite possibly. I mean, I don't like it. I've never liked it, but a lot of businesses don't allow you to discuss salary with your co-workers, with your colleagues. But I guess this is one of the reasons why you don't.
Yes, and I think he's probably uncovered it because of his position, and then is a bit miffed about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I was reading an interesting article via LinkedIn the other day, yesterday I think it was, that said that you are pretty much guaranteed to increase your salary by a larger chunk of cash by job hopping rather than waiting for promotions and pay rises sort of in the current job that you're in.
Yeah.
And it might be a case that this is exactly what's happened. You know, this person who's recently joined is on 15k more simply because they job hopped. Whereas the person raising the question might well have been in place in this firm for a couple of years and hasn't had the pay rises they'd have hoped for.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, my preference is to try and maintain some level of parity based on responsibility and what the job actually entails. You know, like if I was to hire somebody with 5 years experience and then hire somebody with 2 years experience, but the job is identical, I would expect the pay to be pretty similar for both, even though one person has more experience.
Yeah.
I say pretty similar. I mean, within a range, you know.
What do you think about? So you mentioned earlier something that I wanted to touch on, and then we came off it about the transferable skills, because that's obviously not been accounted for. We don't know, this person might. I mean, we've hired people before as a company that might not look great on paper, but they've got the personality that the team needs at that moment. So, you know, for example, we've got a certain demographic in our tech team that are quite quiet, keep themselves to themselves. So then when we came across someone that could inject some personality into it and then get the morale up, we opted for that person over someone else, because we knew if we brought in another person that was also quiet, would end up stagnating the team, and that could hinder development in future. So we wanted someone that could sort of bring some personality into it, which we did successfully, and that's a good thing. So on paper they might not look like the best option, but for us they were at that moment in time. So I totally get that, but I do get that, like, this guy has said basically got 10 years experience, because you can say, oh, IT is not cyber, but it is. So if you are working in cybersecurity and you don't understand anything to do with IT, or you've got no exposure to IT, you're a bit going to be a bit shit on. You're going to be a bit crap, basically. Sorry for saying the poo word. You're going to be a bit crap, mainly because you can't apply any pragmatism to what you're doing. So I use this example for my mum once when I was having a conversation with my mum about this. And my mum's worked in, she used to work in care for years. If you read a book about a certain medication and you pass an exam about that medication, that's great. You're not necessarily then any good at distributing that medication to people. And then you're in a care home and your job is to give out that medication. If you can't take a pragmatic approach to it, you don't have any experience with people you're caring for, you might be handing out that medication like it's Smarties. Whereas if you've got a lot of experience of it, you can say, okay, well, that person's on this drug, so I can't give them that because it's going to have these contraindications. This person's at this time in their life, so that's not going to work for them. It's going to potentially cause this. That could be quite dangerous. This person it's going to work for. If it doesn't, I'll try this. So when you are in cybersecurity and you can't apply that same sort of thought process to a given situation as you would sort of in a medical field, I don't know why I'm going down this route, you are at risk of just being a tick box person. So if you go into a company and go, right, okay, we're going to prep you for this particular audit that's coming up, or this certification that you need to get, you need to have these things that's on my sheet because this is what I've been told I've got to check you against. And they go, well, we can't have that because of the way our network's orchestrated. So your answer can't necessarily be, oh, you've got to kill your network and start again, because that's what's on my sheet. But if you come in with 2 years experience and you're auditing someone, that is what your thought process is going to be. Whereas someone else that might have had an IT background can look at the situation and say, right, okay, let's I know I said twerk this, like get your bum out. Let's tweak this. Let's manipulate that a little bit. Let's just change this setting. Let's do these little pragmatic things. And then we can get through that audit with very little spend. But we still have the security in place. So I do think that you don't have to be technical to be in cyber, but I think a degree of technical understanding and background has to happen in order for it to be any good. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that's something that also changes throughout somebody's career. I remember sort of in my early days, server engineering and networking and stuff, trying to do everything right by the book. As I became more secure in my skills later on, I sort of learned where things could flex in order to get what I wanted, whether that's a systems design or whatever, or a bit of configuration maybe. And then later on, sort of managing people more, it became about getting things done effectively. Achieving stuff rather than doing everything perfectly by the book. And so I think pragmatism, or the ability to be pragmatic, is something that you develop over time.
Yeah, definitely.
As you lean less on your training and more on your experience. I think the way it works is slightly different as things get on. Oh, we've got an interesting comment. I'm impressed that this person has a CISSP when ISC2 states you need 5+ years of work experience in cybersecurity.
I know. I clocked that as well, and I was going to bring it up because he's so right. Oh, I don't know. You can't tell. Sorry, it just says LinkedIn user on that comment.
Yeah.
God, I'm going to get cancelled again. Yeah, no, this is a good point actually. However, if you've got I suppose if you've got exposure to cybersecurity, you could, in that 8 years in IT, you can wing it. I don't know. You'd be able to argue to ISC squared that you've got 5 years. I don't know what this person's done. No idea. But yeah, I did clock that as well. They've just outed themselves.
Yeah, and the thing is, there is a lot of crossover, isn't there? And also, there's so many companies that don't have a separate security team, where everything is lumped into IT, that you could quite feasibly have it even without the security specific job title.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not too. I thought that actually when I read it, but it's not too obvious. So a couple of bits at the end that I thought were quite funny to talk about. I've considered sharing my thoughts on LinkedIn. This person said, I would say, do not do that.
No, do
I
not
want to ruin
do
your career.
Yeah, absolutely. You do not want to be known in public for being that guy.
Yeah, even if you think people will agree, don't do it. It's not worth it. Absolutely not worth it. Especially if this lady finds out and can tell it's about her. It's not going to do any favors. He says, what did he say? I've considered sharing my thoughts on LinkedIn, but I'm worried it might harm my career. It definitely will harm your career, so don't do it. I always want to say to people, be brave and say what's on your mind, but sometimes don't. I'm so angry and I'm starting to dislike her, even though it's not her fault. That's right, it's not her fault. It is the company that's hired her.
Absolutely.
And give her a
don't
chance.
be angry at her. Don't take it out on her. You're just going to make your daily life hell.
Yeah, you're
Essentially,
going to ruin
take it
your
up with
own
your line
life.
manager.
I would say don't even do that, because it's not going to achieve anything.
No, but if you're after a 15 grand raise, sorry,
All right, yeah.
then justify it to your line manager why you're worth it. Don't even bring this other person into it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a really good bit of advice, actually. But moaning about it's not gonna achieve anything unless it's a salary discussion. So I would be careful about doing that. And he's right, it's not her fault. It is if she's negotiated it and they've seen value in her, so fuck it, I guess. What should I do to handle this situation without driving myself mad with jealousy?
Well, first of all, admit that there's no situation. It's not a situation. It's none of your business what somebody else is earning. Particularly, just concentrate on what you're worth, how you add value, and then negotiate your own pay rise.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that was quite blunt, but
no, you're right. I didn't have a vote to add.
Oh, there's a wonderful line from LinkedIn user, and be prepared to walk if the line manager says no. Yeah, absolutely. Everybody has the right to change jobs for any reason that they like, and that is your final backstop if you can't get what you want. Oh, there's a skill shortage. Get HR to benchmark the team, as it's a risk if a team are underpaid. Yeah, it absolutely is. And it's no good asking the team, because the answer will be unanimously, yes, we're all underpaid. So
yeah, everyone's going to say that, aren't they?
Having a team like HR benchmark the role is definitely a good move. A quick word about benchmarking, actually. It can be tricky when there's so many weird and wonderful job titles floating around and different regional pay. It can be a tricky thing to do. So at best, you're probably going to settle on a range, but certainly it's a strong starting point.
Well, companies like the Big Four, in which this guy is saying he works at, they do that anyway. They already do that anyway. So, they've either brought this person in knowing it's potentially a diversity hire and they're giving them more than what they should, or they see value in this person. And this is the problem with being the only woman in the team. If she is the only woman in the team, if you are successful, there's always going to be someone that says, yeah, but you got that promotion, or you got that pay rise, or you got that kudos or whatever because you're the woman in the team. There's always going to be that person that says that. And then if you're shit and you're not good at, oh God, I said I won't swear. If you're not good at your job, you are going to be the person that represents all women. So if you're not good at something, it's not like, oh, Eliza's rubbish at that. It's women are rubbish at that. Bizarrely, that's the case. It's very odd. Because no one says all men are rubbish at being developers. No one says that, because it's not true. But if you've got someone called Barry in your team and Barry's a rubbish developer, you think Barry's rubbish. We need to get rid of Barry. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a horrific situation, and that nonsense needs to stop sharpish.
So this guy has said, how do I stop myself disliking her so much? You're going to dislike people, aren't you? Like, let yourself dislike her, but don't let it impact your job. And I would say, just remind yourself that just because she's potentially negotiated a more than fair situation for herself doesn't take away from you, potentially. Someone else's success doesn't necessarily mean that you are lacking success. You still have the opportunity to succeed. And like LinkedIn user says, if you aren't able to get a pay rise off the back of this might be a bit of a golden goose. If you aren't able to, off the back of this, get a pay rise, you can always leave. And if you don't want to leave, get over yourself. Yes, it's not ideal, but there's always going to be someone that benefits from something more than you do. And this where he says, I've genuinely considered leaving because it feels so unfair. Yeah, maybe it is unfair. Maybe you should leave. But you can't guarantee that the next place you go to is all going to be fair. Either life's not fair, is it?
No, that's it. And it strikes me that this is potentially a short-term problem. We all know that CISSPs are quite valuable in the marketplace, you know, and I should imagine that the person who's asked this question, that their salary is going to rise sooner rather than later, given that there's a well publicized shortage of candidates in security. So, you know, whether that's true or not is another story.
I don't know. Maria Rose has said a good comment. If this was a man, would we be having this discussion if it was a bloke? I don't know.
I don't know. I think there might be a smaller conversation. And I don't think it would be about whether they're a man or not. I think it would be about the skills and experience. And that really sort of highlights one of the key issues here. You know, as you say, Eliza, you wouldn't. When a bloke is crap at his job, you don't say all men are crap. You say that particular person is, and it's really unfair that women in tech or women in the workplace in general have to carry the torch for all women.
Yeah, it's a bit crap.
It is, and it's a situation that should never have happened. And companies that on paper say they're all up for diversity and inclusion need to do better at stamping out that sort of culture.
But also, you know what they need to do better at? They need to do better at not feeding these problems by saying we want a woman for this role. Right? Even if they quietly do, interview people, pick the best person for the role. If you don't get a woman that's the best person for the role, don't make a thing about it. So I didn't realize how prevalent this was until LHS. And it was, you know, ask the other volunteers. We'd have recruitment consultants turning up every single month that we ran an event and saying, I've got this massive company that everyone's heard of. I've got this massive company everyone's heard of. They're only interviewing women for these roles because they've not got enough women in the team. And you just think, right, okay, so that word gets out internally in the security team. We've got this, SOC manager role. We've got this security lead role, and we're only interviewing women for it. Or there's been a big push to get women. Then any woman that gets that job, regardless of how amazing she is, she might be the best person for that job, is always going to be tarred with this stigma around the fact that she probably got it because she was a woman. And that company's created that. And then they've created a bad culture around her.
Yeah, exactly. And she's on a hiding to nothing from the outset.
Yeah. Oh, so whether you care or not is a different point. If you're like, fuck it, I'm not bothered. As long as I get the job and get the money, I'm not bothered. But it can be very disruptive to a team if you do that. It can be very disruptive to an individual if they realise they've been hired as a diversity hire. Yeah,
exactly.
Which happened to me.
Any final words of advice?
Life's not fair. We can't tell from this one perspective whether or not this is truly just a diversity hire for the sake of it, or whether this is someone that's bringing, 20 years behind them in, police force, or I don't bloody know what I'm talking about, do I? But we don't know the ins and outs of it. But at the end of the day, life's not fair. You are going to meet people that have got a better hand than you, and you either have to get over it or you will have to drive yourself mad, and you've got to pick one. Do you want peace or do you want victory? And if you want peace, get on with your life and let everyone else get on with theirs. And if you want victory, go to war over it, but don't expect a war to be a pretty place to be in.
Yeah, and don't do it on LinkedIn.
God, I don't even considered that. You've seen how woke LinkedIn is. Not only would he'd probably get arrested. How dare you? Okay, cool.
Amazing.
I think we answered it.
I think we've answered it. Thank you very much indeed. So that concludes this session for Cybersecurity Agony Uncles. I'm Rich Benfield, and my co-host has been...
I was going to make I'm Eliza-May Austin. Hit that bell and subscribe, guys.
Yeah, hit that bell, like and subscribe and share and all of that. And if any of you who are listening have any questions for the Cybersecurity Agony Uncles, then please send them through via the socials. Thanks very much indeed.
Ciao for now. Bye.